What's up, everybody? This is Devious RV, and today I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favorite NECA figures of all time. And for an honorable mention, we will be doing I'll be putting the Ripley with Power Loader and the Alien Queen. Back when these figures first came out, the Power Loader actually doesn't come with Ripley. The Ripley's a separate figure. You got to buy the Ripley, and then you buy the Power Loader, and then you put them together. The Alien Queen came out, and then it sucks. The story about the Alien Queen figure, when I first got it, I was waiting forever for this figure, and then when they finally announced it, I pre-ordered it, and then when it finally came out, I opened the figure, and both of his legs just broke off right off the joint. So I was kind of bummed out. I returned it, got another one, and then the new one I got, the head snapped right off the package, out of the package. So there was a lot of bad quality control with my first couple Alien Queens. I finally returned it, and then the third one's been a charm. So yeah, honorable mention. These two are really good figures from NECA. Now the last honorable mention is the Lost Predator that NECA did as part of their Predator line, and I used to have a lot of the Predators. I actually sold a lot of the Predators I had, but this is one of the ones that I've kept because I just think it looks awesome. As you can see, the eyes have a light up feature. Now this Predator, a lot of people are probably looking at it. If you don't follow Predator a lot, you might think like, where did this Predator come out? But this Predator was actually from part 2 at the end. If you haven't seen Predator 2, Danny Glover kills the City Hunter Predator, and then at the end all the Predators show up looks like he's gonna have to fight them all, but they actually end up giving him like a gun, and then this is one of the Predators that shows up at the end, but if you blink, it's like a blink and you'll miss kind of cameo because they barely show him. But I'm not sure if they've done any backstories on him in the comics, but yeah, don't really know much about this guy other than he just looks freaking badass, and then that helmet is awesome. He comes with an unmasked head too, but it's just the look with the mask he just looks all cybernetic and futuristic, and then that sword is awesome. So really good figure. Here at number 10 we have Dutch Schaefer from Predator 1, from the Predator line, and yeah, a lot of people have been asking for this figure when they first started doing Predator figures and they got the Predator license and stuff. A lot of people are asking, when are we going to get some of the human characters? When are we going to get Dutch? When are we going to get Danny Glover, who we still haven't gotten and we probably won't ever get? And then they finally revealed the Dutch figure, and this is probably my favorite one. They made like 4 different versions of him, I think, and but this one is my favorite one out of all of them. Don't really have too much bad to say about it. The only gripe I have with it is that maybe his arms could have been a little bit bigger. His arms look a little small. They're still like bigger than any other human's arms, but I think they were a little bit bigger in the movie. And yeah, this is a great figure, and I put it at number 10. And at number 9 I have the Mohawk Gremlin from the Gremlins 2 line, and pretty much Mohawk Gremlin is a reincarnation of the Striped Gremlin from part 1, which, you know, that guy was pretty crazy. So this is one of the 4 gremlins that come out of Gizmo from part 2, and then, you know, after eating, you're not supposed to, one thing about a gremlin is you're not supposed to feed them after midnight, not supposed to see sunlight, and they're not supposed to get wet. Well, once Gizmo accidentally gets wet, he gives birth to four gremlins, and one of them ends up being this one, which is kind of the ringleader of the other 4, and this guy's pretty nuts. And then the figure that NECA did ended up pretty much capturing it. You know, he has a little gun and all that. Yeah, and this guy was such a good figure, and yeah, that's why he's number 9. And at number 8 I have Dr. Chenard from the Hellraiser line. And like Hellraiser was actually one of the first lines that NECA acquired, because I mean back then, and it was mainly the only thing to collect back then. It was pretty much just like Marvel Legends and just some other little lines, but NECA was coming along, and Hellraiser was actually one of the first lines that they acquired, and they went pretty deep on the line. And I remember when this came out, because this was from Hellraiser 2, Hellbound, this is probably one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and this is the evil doctor that ends up turning into a Cenobite in part 2, and he ends up being the main villain of Hellraiser 2. So then they made a figure, and this figure still, the articulation is pretty limited on it, but this figure still holds up to this day. And number 7, I have Kratos from God of War 3. Now this figure, it had actually been prototyped many years before it finally came out. I think NECA lost the license. They had the God of War license because they made figures of God of War 2. And then they had shown off this from God of War 3, and then I think they lost the license, so the figure didn't come out for a few years, and I guess they regained the license and were able to finally release this figure. They didn't release any other. I don't think it would have been nice if they would have released some of the villains from God of War 3, but I mean, at least this figure came out, and then this figure is pretty awesome. And in at number 6, we have the NECA creature from the Black Lagoon, and this figure is a figure I had been wanting for a long time. I think Diamond Select did some Universal monsters, and they did some creatures, but when I knew NECA got the license, I knew their creature was probably going to be the best one around. And then when it finally came out, it was a lot. We had to wait a while for it. We had Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Mummy, The Bride. All those came out before, and but I mean, it was worth the wait because this figure came out, and this figure came out sick. There's 4 versions of it. There's the standard one, which is this one. There's a black and white one. There's a glow in the dark one, which was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive, and then there's like a translucent one, and as an homage to like the Burger King Kids Club back in the day where they did the Universal monsters in their kids meals. So yeah, this figure is great, and it's probably the best figure from the Universal Monsters line. In at number 5, we have the Iron Maiden Regenerator from Resident Evil 4. Now this figure is, this character from this video game is probably one of the scariest characters ever in a horror video game. This guy is just freaking scary from his breathing and just to the noises it makes when it comes out. But then when they came out with this figure came out and it was really good. It's actually really expensive if you try to buy it now. The whole Resident Evil 4 line is pretty expensive. I don't have all the figures yet, but I have this one. There's also a kind of a translucent version where it's because in the game, to kill this character, you have to shoot it. It has parasites all around his body, and you need like an infrared scope to see where they're located, and you need to shoot those to kill it. There's a figure, a variant of that one, which kind of shows the infrared and the parasites. But yeah, this figure is an awesome figure from that line, and still the articulation is super limited. I think it could only move its arms, but it still looks like this is probably the pose I would have it in anyway. So yeah, one of my favorites for sure. And at number 4, we have the Spider Gremlin from NECA. Now this is the earlier stripe figure, Mohawk Gremlin figure that I posted. This is when he takes a serum, a spider serum, and he ends up turning into a half spider, half gremlin hybrid. And this thing is nasty. I remember when I was a little kid and I watched Gremlins 2, I was like super scared of this guy. And then, spoiler alert, Gizmo ends up killing him, which was like, yay, it was one of those awesome moments when you're a little kid. But this figure is just the fact they even came out with it and were able to produce it, because this had been shown, but it took a while for it to come out as well. So very happy that this figure came out. And just the sculpt, paint, like the butt on it looks all slimy still. This is a great figure, and one of my favorites. That's why it's number 4. And in at number 3, I have the New Blood Jason, which is part 7, I think, from the Friday the 13th franchise. And this is they came out with a original version. The first version they came out with NECA was pretty much, it was like a Staction figure. It didn't have no articulation, hardly any. So then it was part of I think it was the first series of Cult Classics that they did, NECA, and then that figure I think got reissued a couple times, and then they finally came out with this one, which is the ultimate version of the New Blood Jason, where it has super articulation, and you just see all the details from him. And yeah, this figure is awesome, and one of my favorite figures for sure, and then it comes in at number 3. Now at number 2, I'm kind of cheating because it's not just one figure, but it's actually 4. It's the Ninja Turtles. You can't put just one out and not put the other 3. So, you know, Raph is my favorite of all time, but you gotta have his brothers out there too. You gotta have Michelangelo, Leonardo, and Donatello. So these are from the first Ninja Turtle movie that NECA did, and so these are pretty much perfect, spot-on representations from the movie. I remember the movie I watched as a kid. Then seeing these figures is just, these perfectly encapsulate the look of the movie onto figure form, and these were perfect. I don't see how they're ever going to top these. You know, it's NECA. They usually always end up making better stuff down the line. They're always improving. So yeah, these are my number 2. Then at number 1, I have Isaac Clarke from Dead Space. And those who know me, close friends, this is no surprise. They know how much I rave about this figure and how much I talk about this figure. I always said if I could only take one figure with me, it would be this one. And yeah, it's not the most articulated figure. It's not the most well sculpted. It's not the best painted, but just for some reason, it just looks good, and I just always like the way it looks. When this figure first came out, I think it was barely when NECA started articulating a lot of their stuff. When NECA first came out, they had a lot of their figures were more like statues, like kind of like what McFarlane was doing. And then as NECA started getting more and more licenses and they started growing, they started adding articulation to the figures. And this is one of the first figures that had gotten articulation on the hips, on the knees, the ankles, the elbows, the stuff like that. And then me being a huge fan of the Dead Space franchise, this figure just came out, and it was just an instant buy. My only regret is not buying more than one at the time. I just bought one. I wish I would have had an extra one to have on card, but you know, it is what it is. And this is my favorite NECA figure of all time. I don't see it changing anytime soon. And it has a lot of sentimental value as well. So yeah, this is my number 1 favorite NECA figure of all time. Also, if you can leave me a like and comment what is your favorite NECA figure of all time, or what's your top 10, and yeah, if you can like and subscribe, and yeah, thank you. Peace.